Welcome, everybody. I'm Rachel, and I can think of no other time at least in the history as I've experienced in my own life, my 62 years now of life, where we need to think about how to continue to shift humanity's destiny lines to a place of higher consciousness, to a place of greater peace for future generations. With what is going on with Israel and Palestine, with the war in Ukraine, with chaos seemingly everywhere, I hope that you will at least listen to what I'm assuming is going to be an amazing conversation with my dear friend and colleague, P.M.H. Atwater, about the nature of reality and about her view, her own life, her own remarkable life, and how she has been a sacred activist for peace in her own life as she spreads a word of light and healing and hope and optimism to everyone around the world. I am so excited to introduce you to her here. So I'm just gonna read a small bio that you can easily find. Yeah, she's just ready to dive in. You can easily find on PMH's website. But then I'm going to hand it over to her and let her talk about herself, how she got here where she is today, and then we'll dive into the wisdom of PMH. So PMH Atwater, LHD, is one of the original researchers in the field of near-death studies, having begun her work in 1978 and completing 10 books on her findings, some of which have now been verified in clinical settings.
20.
The book of near-death experiences was featured in the online version of Newsweek magazine. Near-Death Experiences, The Rest of the Story, is her most complete and controversial book yet. She has won many awards, appeared on numerous TV shows, and spoken around the world, always inviting people to look past appearances for the truth that underlies what we think we know. Her most recent book, which I'm almost finished with PMH, Edgewalker, recounts her remarkable life story, which in and of itself is a healing and a teaching. So no matter what you read of PMH's, no matter what talks of hers you listen to, I know you will be inspired and changed. So what do you think of that, PMH? Good?
Well, I think that's an old resume.
Oh, okay. Well, then you need
I've done 20 books.
20 books. Okay, your website needs to be updated.
Yes. Well,
so why don't you fill us in on what's happened since then?
Well, I just kept going.
Okay.
I just kept going and going and going and going. I didn't quit my work with near-death experiences until about 6 months ago. I'm now 86. Isn't that cool? I'm 86.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about my life and kind of what made me to be what I am today, who knows? We're going back to Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. We're going back to before Pearl Harbor, 1937. I don't remember a day walking to first grade in Twin Falls, Idaho, when I mean, it was literally a walk of death. Because in those days, if anybody died in the war effort, your family was given a huge gold star decal, which you put on your window. To tell everybody that someone in your family died in the war effort. So I was passing by all these homes, maybe 5 or 6 blocks that I had to walk to get to school. And those were New York City blocks. I mean, they were big blocks. And always there were these gold stars on people's windows. I called it the Walk of Death.
Mhm.
And this one home, excuse me, on my walk to school I had about 5 or 6 new gold stars overnight. And I
Wow.
just stood there and cried and cried and cried because I knew what that meant. And then I finally made it to school. I do not recall a single morning in all of first grade when I didn't have to stop my shudders and tears just to walk in the door of my classroom.
Mhm.
And then getting in the classroom, I was punished consistently
Hmm.
because I was the only kid in the first grade who well, I smelled color. I saw I could see music and hear numbers.
Mhm.
Well, we now today call that synesthesia, which means there are changes in the temporal lobes of the brain.
Yeah.
But then they called it lying. So I spent most of my first grade on this tall stool, wearing this tall conical hat
Aw.
as an example of, I mean, it said dunce on it as an
Aw.
example of a bad kid who told lies.
Aw.
So at the end of the first grade, I was so angry.
Ah.
I was so angry.
Mhm.
I decided um uh that every adult was stupid and I never wanted to be one.
Well, that's probably pretty wise.
And at the age of 5, I was doing my own research. Um, um, all scientific research, yeah, yeah. Uh, um, Trying to find out about mud pies and why they were different colors in different places. So I did my first double-blind study with a control group at the age of 5.
Wow.
And I wound up being raised by Norwegians. Can you imagine the reclaimed deserts of southern Idaho, and I'm raised by Norwegians? You know, we'd have raw fish for breakfast. Typical Norwegian. Yeah, all those kinds of foods. SONG song from the Sognefjord. So funny, and how that happened. Um, I mean, I could go on and on with those stories of being raised by these Norwegians, and they were helping out my mother. I did not know my mother was my mother. I
Mm.
thought my mother was Mama Song,
Mm.
and to find out that my mother was someone else, well, it was traumatizing to me.
Mm.
So when was it? About second grade, maybe. My mother had numerous, affairs. So, well, literally, I had 2 mothers and 5 fathers.
Mm. Wow.
So my last name was always changing. Um, and I when I left Mama Song, um, when I left the songs, it's like I left music. I left love. I left anything homey, and moved in with my mother. She married a police officer, and they had 2 more children. And it took me about 2 years or so to accept my father. He legally adopted me, and we lived on the edge of Rock Creek Canyon
Hmm.
in near Twin Falls, Idaho. So I was born maybe about 3/4 of a mile, maybe half a mile from the edge of that huge, massive Rock Creek Canyon
Yeah.
and the Snake River Canyon. And this,
Yeah.
so I've always been an edge walker. I've
Wow.
always walked on edges. I loved
Yeah.
canyon walls. I walked on edges. And my life has been um, edges. I'm always walking on edges.
Yeah.
And for me, I was used to that. I mean, I just grew up an edge walker, really, totally. So and finally, my parents had had two children. Um, and one of the fun things I often was with my new dad, the policeman, and he would sometimes have to take me home when I got missed the bus to go home. So I would walk to the police station, and he would, coffee break, he'd take me home. In those days, you could do that. You can't do that now, but in those days, you could. And so my TV set literally was the windshield of the cop car.
Wow.
When Dad would have to, when he would have to take a call, I would see the beatings and the muggings. And I'd see it from my windshield. I mean, but I couldn't say anything. And then this one time, he went around the corner. I think on two wheels, chasing a guy. And Dad would always say, "Hit the floor," and I knew what that meant. I had to go down. So I had this crazy life.
Ah,
It really was kind of strange. And I did not do well at school. Didn't do well at school at all. Um, and it wasn't until, oh gee, maybe high school when I finally decided, okay, I'm gonna do things differently. So I settled down and worked real hard on my, you know, school and classes and tests and all of this stuff. And I graduated the upper 11%. I missed 10 by I think 2 points or 1 point.
yeah.
So I said I graduated in the upper 11% of my class
Mhm.
and became a secretary, married. I met my husband on a ski slope. I can honestly say we fell for each other. He spent the rest of the day trying to teach me how to slow down because I didn't know. So, and then we married a few months later. Oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 months later, and we had 3 children. We baptized them all to flight at the age of 3 weeks old. We would take our children up and baptize them to flight.
In airplanes, in airplanes.
Yeah, in an airplane.
I just had to make sure it wasn't like spiritually flying, like
These are real airplanes. Away we'd go. Um, and I loved flying into rainbows
oh,
because here's this beautiful rainbow,
yeah.
and you feel so blessed. And when you're inside of the rainbow, there's nothing there,
Oh,
nothing.
wow.
And such a lesson.
Wow, yeah.
Lesson when everything is perfect and everything is beautiful. There's nothing there. Nothing. Wow, what a lesson. It's you that's there. You and all that you bring to the world is in the rainbow, but the rainbow isn't there.
Wow.
There's no color or nothing. That's just
Wow.
you.
Wow. Wow.
So that was a wonderful lesson. And I would always carry all kinds of objects in my purse because I never knew when we would be forced down by a downdraft or an updraft or whatever. Um, so I never knew where we were going to wind up, in the middle of a field, on a road, on a highway, and every once in a while that happened. So I would pull out a can opener for the kids, whatever. So we learned to ah we learned how to live and thrive in the middle of nothing, and be able to handle whatever life gave us.
Mm.
And my former husband then took up flying. Well, we lost our farm. We literally lost our farm. And I remember forever, ever, ever standing there, all of us, all three kids, me and my husband, and watching our life go by. I mean, our life gone, 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 and no place else to go. No way to go anywhere else. So I became a secretary. My former husband became an ag pilot and flew planes, spraying fields.
Mm.
And in those days in Idaho, you could not take off in flight until the bees were in bed.
Mm.
And then when the bees woke up, you had to land, because the bees were protected in Idaho. So
Mm.
all of your flying, all of your ag flying and spraying fields were done at night.
Yeah.
And then, so it was a crazy way to live. In those days, I literally, you won't believe this, but I literally set a plate for death at our table. There was a chair for death. There was a plate for death, and cup and knives and forks, so that our children would grow up with death,
Mm.
and they would realize that death was normal, death was okay, death was part of our life.
Mm.
And so our three children grew up with death. Then all of that, passed by, and we needed to make more money, live in a better place. So we moved to Boise, Idaho, the capital of Idaho. And I tell everybody, born in Twin Falls, died in Boise. That's that's the way it was for me. I was a secretary for a while and working like 90 miles an hour, it felt like. Really high speed job. Didn't like it. And an attorney's secretary passed by, and she said, "Well, I just know of this guy, sheriff's deputy, who's looking for handwriting analysis to help him on his job. He's got lots of handwriting analysis from criminals. He wants, normal people. Would you participate?" I said, "Sure." So I wrote out my little paragraph that I got from the phone book. I wrote it out, sent it in, and 2 months later, I'd almost forgotten it by then. 2 months later, and it's all single spaced.
Hmm.
A really tremendous handwriting analysis. That guy was so good. He could even tell the kind of food I preferred from the handwriting analysis. Can you believe
Wow.
that? And
Wow.
he kept saying over and over and over again, "You're in the wrong job. You should be a writer." And
Mm.
I thought the guy was cracked. What do you mean, writer? Something about being a writer. So, the Bible says, for those who knock, the door is opened.
Hmm.
So my idea was knocking was to stop people on the street. I
Hmm.
literally did that. Walking down Boise, Idaho, and would stop people and say, introduce myself. And do you know anything about writing? A writers group, a writers club, anything. The third person I stopped knew the president of the local writers league. So I,
Wow.
I called that person up, said, I'd like to be a writer. How do I begin? How do I start? She said, well, why don't you attend one of our meetings? So I did. And no kidding, when I walked in that room, there was uh, men and women and all kinds of people. And I felt like I had left the planet
Mm.
because they were all happy and they were all, telling jokes and they were creative. And it's like, whoa, what do I have to do to join? And I had to create three works which were judged. And at the meeting when they were read, it's like, ah, it's just like, oh dear. And this one guy who wrote for the Saturday Evening Post
Wow.
read one of my pieces and he said, "I vote her in. She's a natural talent.
Wow.
It's going to die." I just but I joined, and within 9 months, I was the head of the organization, and about a year, uh, about a year, maybe a year and a half later, I was the head of the state writers league,
Wow.
getting everybody enjoying it and trying it and taking off.
Hmm.
And I started and I was so much enjoying life then, and all aspects of life, the psychic, the esoteric. I mean, anything, everything. So I started Idaho's first nonprofit metaphysical corporation by the name of Interform. Went to the Attorney General and started it. Um, Easily over 3,000 people, over this time span of maybe 7 years. We held psychic fairs. We held um, classes in out of body travel. I mean, we did it all. And I learned hypnosis from a professional, did stage work. And it was just fabulous. It was fabulous. Opening other doors and helping other people do the same. That was important to me, that other people be able to do it too. And then finally the time came when I sort of had enough. I mean, other people can do it too. And so it's time for me to do something else.
Mm.
So I decided to become a bank manager. And I was taking classes from the American Society of bank management, and still having some meetings in my home.
Mm-hmm.
And this one night, this one fellow, um, he was late, didn't come at all, and I had to go to bed at night early because the next day I was taking a test in my drafting class. So I went to bed early, and I'm a heavy sleeper, went right to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And but my oldest daughter let in this man who was late, and he didn't have, he was so scared, an accident or something. I don't know what was wrong with him. All I know is we had several bedrooms in the house, and he picked an empty bed. Everything was fine. And during the night, he left his bedroom, came to my bedroom, and raped me.
Yeah.
I became pregnant,
Mm.
and what do? I became pregnant, lost the baby,
Mm-hmm.
and went through 3 major deaths. I mean, real ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm going to interject here that in your book, Walker, it's quite an incredible story. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, like how many times you actually died and then came back, all as a result of this sexual assault and the
yeah.
loss of this baby. Yeah,
Well, I had to relearn how to stand, how to crawl,
yeah,
how to walk. Had to had to relearn everything.
yes.
But in those deaths, each one, I also had a near death experience, and those near death experiences were incredible and opened me up to worlds that I did not know existed. Well, kind of did, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know them in the way I was presented them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's very different. And the third one, that was March 29th, 1977.
Mm-hmm.
And a voice spoke. I call it the voice like none other. I didn't know what
Mm.
else to call it. And it boomed out, test revelation. You are to do the research. 1 book for each death.
Hmm.
The first one was not named. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of think it was coming back to life, my first major book, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The second book was Future Memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend that book to anybody because it's not a book, it is a labyrinth. I was
It's a,
shown by that voice how to do it.
it's a wonderful book.
It's
Yes.
an incredible
I
book.
highly recommend it. Yes.
And the third one was a manual for developing humans.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't know that the ancient word for humans was Hugh. Hugh. That was the word for human. 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 Hugh.
Hmm.
Um, and uh,
So kind of like you,
no, Hugh.
you,
That
like
voice,
breath,
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 Hugh.
you.
Absolutely, Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all need to learn because human is God man, God woman, but it's also who you are.
Uh-huh.
It's really who you are. You are that breath of spirit. And we are all born the breath of spirit. We grow up that breath of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a manual for developing humans teaches you how to be who you really are, a co-creator with the creator, because that's who you are. And it teaches you that from childhood on. It's a wonderful book. There's a lot of thought form drawings in it, and again, that voice showed me how to do it. So the following year, which is 1978, I quit my job on the very day I was to become a bank manager. Can you imagine that?
Oh.
A bank title. I was to receive a bank title, and in those days, women didn't get bank titles, and I was to receive a bank title. And I walked out. I walked out. My boss. I went to my boss, and I walked in her door, and I said, "I'm going to quit my job and chase rainbows." She said, "Don't say another word, sit down."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I didn't say anything. And she said, that morning at 4 a.m, she was awakened by a vision. And in that vision, she told the bank cashier, the head of the bank, "I'm going to have to replace me because she's going to chase rainbows."
Oh, wow.
And I remember hitting her desk really hard and saying, "That's not fair. You knew about it before I did." So I did. I sold my home. The kids, my son went elsewhere. My oldest daughter went elsewhere. The youngest went to live with her father. I walked out on my life, walked out on my world, stuffed into my little Ford Pinto what I could stuff into it, and just me. I went first to watch the sunset silver over the Pacific, and then meandered across the country, seeing things, and watching finally the sun rise golden over the Atlantic. And just, it was just so incredible. And I had cousins that lived there, so I was staying with my cousins. And of course, it occurs to you, you got to have a job and a place to live. What do you do? So I tried out for jobs, and this one, I just knew I was going to get that job. So instead of going looking for other jobs, I just laid down at DuPont Circle and put my purse, and put my hands over my purse and went to sleep. I did. I went to sleep, and then I woke up in time to call, the recruitment company, and they were very excited that we've been looking for you and looking for you. You've got that job.
Wow.
And so, wonderful. I'll start that job at 9 in the morning. And I did. 9 in the morning. I'm because I walked in the door of the office, and I could see myself already sitting at the desk and going back and forth, and doing all these things as someone in the office. And I thought, oh, isn't this nice? I'm already there. It was
Now,
so
now,
neat.
now, can I just, I mean, it's your story, so, but it seems like a piece of this is the way those near-death experiences had affected you, right? In the way you saw and experienced things, right?
I saw myself already there.
Uh-huh, in the future, right.
I mean, literally already there.
Already there.
So I just watched myself go around, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. This is my job. I'm already here. So you know,
Yeah.
I was already there, did my job, worked there for, I think, maybe a year, and then just, ah, I didn't fit in because this one time I went to the post office to mail something,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just wearing an old coat. Nothing special about me. Walked in the post office, and this guy looked at me and he said, "Oh my God, what's all around you?
What's
I
all
never
around
seen
you?
the world." And I'm going, "Oh, what?
What's all
What?
around you? What was all around you? You
Oh,
broke up a little. Huh?
rainbows all around me."
Rainbows.
He saw them.
You're the rainbow lady.
It's just, I was just wearing normal clothes, and that scared me.
Mm.
And several things happened. One of them was I was working at 20th and and I had to scurry across the town because at the Smithsonian Air and Space, they were going to show, they were going to have the special speaker um, on this special theory, this theory of the universe, and how
Mm-hmm.
everything comes to be. And I made it in there just before they locked the doors and sat down in the back of the room. And as this man spoke, I could see everything he said in the air over him. And I could see it all around me. And I thought, yes, he's right on. Wonderful. And then I went to this place where I was staying, and I collapsed against the wall.
Hmm.
And I thought, wait a minute, I can understand that theory, but I can't understand how to walk and wear clothes and do the regular thing. That is now foreign to me.
And that's because of your near-death experiences. So I just want to clarify for our listeners that
That was utterly,
you
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 know,
had to relearn to do everything, right? While you
yeah.
were experiencing this greater reality, this interdimensionality, this right
Be a person.
cosmic, right?
Be a person.
You were you
And
had to. Hmm.
yeah, and finally I learned a litany. I got the what saved my life was reading two books, Dune by Frank Herbert and the Lord of the Rings by Tolkien.
Uh-huh.
I became each person in each book,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, didn't matter. I became
Mm-hmm.
each one.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I learned how to be a human being. And I
Re-
took from that a
re-
litany.
relearned, right?
Yeah, relearned.
Yeah, relearned.
I took from that a litany. I created a litany. I got it from Dune. Well, not really, but I sort of made it up from Dune.
Mhm.
And this is the litany. I'll give it to all of you because it saved my life. Fear is the mind killer.
Mm.
It is the little death. I will face my fear. It will go around me and through me.
Mhm.
And when it is gone, I will remain. And just that litany kept me going.
Wow.
And I gave my first talk on my near-death experience station. Oh, yes, at a police station. Um, they had a special room for the community.
Mhm.
So I was in there and I gave my talk. And this one woman came up to me and looked at me with the stars in her eyes. She said, I wish something like that would happen to me so I could be like you.
Oh,
And I just
yeah.
froze.
Yeah.
I froze. I thought, oh my God, I must have done something wrong.
Mm.
And, you know, and I never talked about my experience again for at least 3 decades.
Wow.
Because my job was to be a researcher, not an entertainer.
Uh-huh. Right.
So I got a hold of various, teachers and colleges and universities and meeting people again and again and again. And then moved to Roanoke, Virginia. And there I got a job that flew me all over half of the United States, from the
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi River, half of the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter where I went. I met another near-death experiencer.
Mm.
Didn't matter where I went. One.
Yeah, and the way you tell the story in your book is that um it's like literally without any provocation, just people would come up to you, not knowing who you were, or like you were a hole in the wall basically, and just say, "Can I tell you about my near-death experience?" So, I mean, that's the uncanny part of it, right?
It was totally uncanny.
Yeah.
It's like being in Macon, Georgia, and I was working a job, and I had this um, um, uh, coffee break. So I went down to the truck stop, and the middle of the floor, there was a table and chair, and I
Mm-hmm.
sat down, and back. And this guy comes up to me. I swear he's as white as he was tall. And he says, is anybody sitting in that chair? I said, no. Can I sit there? Okay. He sits down, puts his elbows on the table, gets really close.
Mm-hmm.
Says, I want you to know I still drink and I still cuss. And I still chase women. But I want you to know all about when I died.
Mm.
He tells me his near-death experience. I mean, it's like that. And that went on for decades.
Wow.
Didn't matter where I was. So then I'm collecting all of
Mm-hmm.
this, and I'm writing books. one after another. Well, Kenneth Ring was the one who saved me. He was the one who validated the work of Raymond Moody.
Mm-hmm.
And so
and just to clarify, Raymond Moody would talk about many lives. How he had he is a very famous book
Life
on
After Life.
Life After Life on reincarnation. Yes.
Right. Well, not on the near-death experience.
Oh, on the near-death experience. Right.
Near-death. He put the near-death experience on the map.
Right.
And it was Kenneth Ring who validated his research.
Right. Okay.
And made his research real.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how Ken found out about me, but he did. And by then, by then I was married. Terry Atwater. Met him at a Zen meditation meeting. We both love Zen. we married about 5 or 6 weeks later. That was 43 years ago. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say the marriage gets better every year. Aww. But anyway, oh, he's my saint. Well, anyway, he says, can I? I've heard about you. Can I? Yeah, I can. Can I come to stay with you? Because he was going to have a big meeting with Raymond Moody and all the big near-death people, and so can I come over? I said, sure, fine. So we talked all night, and in the morning he said, you know more about the near-death experience than anybody else. Mm. You have to come up to Storrs, Connecticut, and meet your compadres. Oh, I didn't know I had anybody else. But I did. I went up there, joined the International Association of Near-Death Studies after it had been like 3 months old, compared their research to my research. And that's how I got started. And before I did that, I was staying with Don and Nettie Rep in Roanoke, Virginia. That was before I met Terry, and then I met Terry, and this fuss about what my new name should be, and I didn't know what my new name should be. And I went to sleep that night and had this dream. And in the dream, there was this incredible, beautiful black sky, and these brilliant, sparkling letters that said P.M.H Atwater. And I was so shocked. I jumped out of bed, and then the colors reversed, and they were hanging in the air. And P.M.H Atwater. Well, when you get married, a woman, you can change your name legally. And so I changed my name.
What was your old name, if you care to share?
What was my old name?
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
I don't remember. It's been too long ago.
Out of mind.
Oh, yes. Yes. Matter. So that's how I got my name. And it can be spelled just PMH. You don't have to have the dot. But what came of that was maybe 3 or 4 years later, when my first book came out, Coming Back to Life, and then Beyond the Light. They were all done by PMHAtwater.com. Well, P.M.H. Atwater. And by then I'd gone to Canada and got my degree. I got my LHD, Letters of the Humanities. You can teach in Canada with that degree, but you cannot teach in the United States with that degree. But at least I had a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's PMH Atwater, LHD.
LHD. Okay.
My dear, that book sold and sold and sold and sold. So did the other, because everybody thought I was a man.
Wow.
Literally. God knew what God was doing. I did not.
Mm-hmm.
And by then I was launched. And I've done all of these years, all of this work all over the world. Ah,
So
yeah,
can I interject a question?
sure.
Okay.
One?
Just one.
Ooh.
So what I want to ask you is, because of your experiences, your own near-death experiences, and what you learned about, you know, God creation, the universes, whatever, right? The unnameable expanse. What you learned about what other near-death experiencers shared with you. What is your understanding about why we're here? Why we incarnate into human form? And how we should understand all that is unfolding in the world around us, especially nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, with what's going on?
What's going
At
on?
least.
Come on,
What did I learn? What did I learn?
you've had your ear against the door, and behind which sits, the divine, and the voices of all these experiencers. Yes. Who, many of whom, as
And
you
in it,
say, like
and in it,
75% of them come back and have a big problem reintegrating into life in this
a big
world.
problem.
Big problem. Because
Don't
of all
don't
that they've
yeah,
experienced and
don't
seen.
believe that it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most near-death experiencers come back and they want to climb the highest tower, and
Uh-huh.
they want to tell everybody God is, death isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that winds you up in a nut house
Mm-hmm.
because people don't believe you,
Mm-hmm.
or they think you are a nut.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, not all of them,
Mm-hmm.
most of them come back a very different person.
Mm-hmm.
And they live their life a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
Between 70 to 80% are divorced
Mm-hmm.
within 7 to 10 years afterward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's rough stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also divine and wonderful because you know a better way of living and a better way of thinking and a better way of reality,
Right.
because you have a different of reality.
Right. And they develop a clearer sense of their mission and purpose in life,
Right.
right? Yeah.
I can only speak for myself here because that's what you asked. You asked me,
Yeah, you.
and my sense, my knowing, my knowledge, my truth is that I am part of the creator.
Mm-hmm.
that I have a job to do here,
Mm-hmm.
and that job is part of a greater plan, whatever that plan is, or just simply I am to live out what I have learned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been, that's what I've done. I've shared what I've learned and what I've come to know as a living reality, because it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've learned that no matter what happens, good or bad, it's still part of that living reality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whatever, whatever, wherever I am, I'm part of that greatness, that isness of what the universe is, what the world is.
Mm-hmm.
And being part of that isness enables me to act out and be a part of wherever I am.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I've chosen to be a particular Westerner who learned how to live in the East and shared that knowledge with everybody I met or talked with
Mm-hmm.
or wrote about. And it also enabled me to take all of their stories, everybody I met, and condense that into an even greater story.
Mm. That's beautiful.
And in creating that story, I've enabled all of us to grow, all of us to take another step,
Mm-hmm.
all of us is to realize that life is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's awful, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Even 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 when it's being torn up into shreds,
Mm-hmm.
it's still wonderful,
Yeah.
because that soul that we are incarnating as in that moment is still learning something
Mm-hmm.
and giving something. Even if it's their life and their blood and their anger, they're still giving something. And we're all learning from that. And we're all gaining from that. I gain from every death. I gain from every life.
Mm-hmm.
To me, with every birth, there are all these lights and another light. And with every death, a light stopped and quit and disappeared. So there's always lights coming on and lights going off.
Mm-hmm.
Lights coming on and
Mm-hmm.
lights going off.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that, the on and the off,
Mm-hmm.
enables me to
Mm-hmm.
be part of a greater reality
Mm-hmm.
that I honor and that I bless and that I feel privileged to be a part of. Yeah.
I had an experience many years ago. I would say it was a profoundly life-changing experience where I met and worked with my first energy healer, my first energy healing session when I was like 30, 32 or 33. And as she worked on me, she started to, just lightly lay her hands on my body, moving the energy. And as she worked with me, I was suddenly experiencing the death of a French holy warrior in in the the Middle Ages on a field of battle, and he was dying. And I was engaging with part of his consciousness, right? And as he was dying, he was kind of going through this interesting life review, or not life review, but he was seeing the faces of all the men, women, and children that he had killed. And he was waking up to this revelation that so he had committed his life to he who he called his Lord Christ, right? And he had believed that this is what his Lord Christ had wanted him to do, right? To convert and or kill the so-called infidels, right? So, I mean, within the framework of, you know, what I understand about violence, I mean, we all share a moral horror in the face of war and violence, or the insanity of what Russia has done to Ukraine, or Hamas recently did to Israel, and Israel has done to Palestinians. I mean, we have that moral horror. And yet what I saw was that what I came to understand through this man's life and through his death um, was his love and his passion, and that it was the love that was driving him, and that it was the love that woke him up, right? That in the end woke him up, and really in a way was waking me up, because he was possibly another life that I had lived, to ultimately make him a peacemaker in other lives. Like he was like the wounded warrior, right? The healed wounded warrior. So I'm really struck by what you say about that no matter what we do, right, we are giving our love, and that is like the point. And in that is the lesson, is the growth, is the evolution, right? Does that mirror back what you were saying? And the joy. I mean, I'm so struck every time, you and I talk, PM. I mean, you live life with such gusto. I mean, I swear to God, you talk about even the hardships and everything, as if like with so much love and passion and joy, like it just makes me want to go out and be like about my own life, with all its complications and messiness and passion and mistakes and, right?
Right.
Right.
Well, my husband is black.
Yeah.
I'm white.
Yeah.
Actually, he's brown and I'm speckled.
Okay.
So so we went through all of that in Roanoke, Virginia, of all places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so funny. We were dating, and he took me in this lovely, lovely restaurant, and everybody put their knives and forks down, and they turned and they looked at us, and they stared, and I would just wave and smile, and and then they would pick their knives and forks back up and smile back every time, and that bothered Terry. So we'd get out of the restaurant, and he'd put me to one side and said, "Don't you know what they're doing?"
Yeah.
Yes. They're giving me their power. And I was just saying thank you. Wherever you give your attention is where you give your power. Those people were giving me their power. So I was just saying thank you because I appreciated it. Yeah.
Well, and it's almost like that old adage, like return, give when when hatred is shown, give love back, right? Just shine, right?
Yeah, you just shine.
You just shine.
That's what I do.
Hmm.
And I've done it everywhere across this world.
Yeah.
What was really wonderful for me, these different places in the world that I went, was Norway.
Mm.
And being raised by Norwegians, I mean, I loved being in Norway. And we went up to the Sognefjord, and we're up at the fjord, and I'm looking at it and saying, "Oh, I'm here for mom and daddy song." And I hear this voice and this feeling, no, you are here for yourself.
Hmm.
And I came to realize I had once lived there.
Hmm.
Fjord, not very far from Vik.
Hmm.
And it all came back
In another life.
in another life.
Uh-huh.
My name then was Olaf.
Mm.
Well, I was part of Olaf's band of beings bringing Christianity to Norway, and that was my job. That was my job, to help Olaf bring Christianity to Norway, and we were at Stiklestad, and Stiklestad is sort of like our great uh, place in the United States, where so many died, and Lincoln gave his big address. Well, that Stiklestad, and and I was there feeling uh, how important it was that we were there to die for God. And I remember Olaf was away from me, and I was over here, and I was fighting. I had my lance, and this lance went right through me, and I remember being so happy.
Hmm.
And so pleased that I was dying. I was dying with Olaf. I was dying to bring Christianity to Norway.
Hmm.
And so when I was there in this life, and went to visit Stiklestad, and walking all around, and and all of this coming back, and walking off property and up a little hill, and there was kind of like a farm and a tractor, and I could see underneath the tractor, that's where I died.
Wow.
So I went up with my little camera and I took a picture of where I died back then, and that picture meant so much to me. But it brought it all back in the sense that I was doing this for God and country.
Hmm.
What a privilege to die for God and country.
Mm.
And I was honored to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What honor I brought. And many lives that I've had were like that.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, yes, get the word out, get the news out. I've started another research project.
Okay.
That voice that spoke to me March 29 to 1977 spoke to me again last year.
Okay.
It was mid-August, and it was 3:15 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that voice said, it's time to do another research project.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, no, I've done all that stuff. I've done all that. I want to do another one. And the voice, undeterred, went on and said, you are to seek out anyone who had a near-death experience or within 1 year after that experience somehow met or in met or somehow aliens.
Oh, met aliens. Oh, good. That's
Well,
a fun research project.
Something alien.
Oh,
Alien
something
was not defined.
alien. Ah,
So it could be an alien from another country, another world, another whatever. An alien. So anybody in your group who during their near-death experience or within 1 year after encountered an alien.
huh.
I want to know about it. Send it to PMH Atwater at PMHatwater.com. PMH Atwater at PMHatwater.com.
Okay.
You have to give me permission to use your story. But I want to know about that. And I've been doing this now for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly anybody has gotten a hold of me.
Hmm.
I'm 26 so far. What I'm finding is so far that people have UFO encounters before their near-death experience, maybe as a child. They have lots of them after that 1 year period.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of them. But during that 1 year, hardly any.
Hmm.
So again, I repeat, if during your near-death experience or within that first year afterward, if you somehow encountered an alien, your definition of alien, let me know.
Okay.
It's another research project, and it's going to be very, very different
Mm-hmm.
because I'm also one of them. But I don't talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it until the book.
Okay, I look forward to that. Well, we do have to wrap up here. So
Ooh,
I want to ask you is, do you believe that we are, what is your belief? Like my belief is that we're in this great time of transition, right? In human consciousness. And that we are going to evolve into a more peaceful version of ourselves. That's not to say there won't be conflict or even violence, but it will be more the exception than the norm. What do you think about what we're going through right now?
I'm to be who I really am.
Okay, there you go.
And I think that covers it.
Okay.
I am to be the fullness of who I really am. every moment, everywhere. So that's what I do. And I bring to each moment the fullness of what's there. If it's death, I'll bring to that moment death. If it's life, I'll bring to that moment life.
Right.
But whatever I do, I will do all that I can to pick up that moment and allow it to be the fullness of a better story, a fuller story. I want it to be full. Yes, full.
Authenticity. Complete. I am who I am.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Well, all right. Anything else you'd like to add?
Everybody, sign up for my free monthly newsletter.
Okay.
Go to www.pmhatwater.com, flip over to newsletter. There is an archive, so you can check out what the newsletter is. Sign up for it. You get it free every month. And I tell everybody, my newsletter is only for the curious. And if you're curious, you'll enjoy it.
It is filled with wonderful stuff. Not to mention, and then your new book,
Edgewalker.
Edgewalker.
Yes, the many lives and deaths of P.M.H. Atwater. And you're going to love chapter 31, because in that chapter, I tell you what it's all about.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yes, and I'm sure that if people want to get in touch with you, you've already given your email address. So what I'm going to say now in closing is thank you, dear PMH.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being our teacher, our inspirer of how to serve every experience with the fullness of our being, with passion and joy. Your joy is infectious. And I needed that today. And probably my listeners did too, do too. And I thank all of my listeners. And I always like to say this aspirational prayer at the end of each of my episodes. May all the goodness that we have generated today in this conversation be for the benefit of our families, our communities, our nations, our peoples, Mother Earth, all our relations, all beings, that we will all walk with joy and happiness and beauty and grace, abundance and prosperity, that we all will be well and whole. May it be so. Aho, wado.
Aho.
Mwah, mwah, big hugs. Bye, PMH. Bye, everybody. Bye.